Now we are going to enter into chapter number 5, and the title of this chapter is going to be called The Fold. Now, this is a fun one. We're in the third dimension, and so time and space bends and folds. We've learned about the concept of that geometry through the music of the band Phoenix, Fences in a Row, and now we begin to see the practical application of what the fold is. This is the idea of order. Order that begins to fold under other orders. And this is going to be what Jesus called a parable. I'm going to tell a parable through my own situation with the Scramble in the grand scheme. So, I came up with the idea, or received the idea of the Scramble, because I had need for concept of it. I had need for putting each person in the same box. And that way it's a very open box because you can do a lot with it. And so I ascended to the top of my own mind, but by ascending to the top of my own mind, I took my matrix and my points of meetings and I made them the most powerful in the world. I got onto the most powerful vibration in the world. Now, to my next door neighbor, he has no concept of that. To him, he tends to be the all-important one. Each person begins to see themselves as the point that everything reflects. They see themselves as the creator they are. But here is the idea where you can be so good at your own self-concept and your own process that meanwhile, while focusing and studying and concentrating, all of a sudden you put down, in relation to NASCAR, a lap time that puts you on the board. And all of a sudden, this is sort of the idea of what I think fame is. To a certain subject, a person became the myth and the metaphor for that subject. And what I want to teach people about in this one, this is a chapter where I'm trying to teach you one thing through all the words that I'm saying, is that you can begin to fold a series of information underneath another series of information. And the best way to organize these things is to know what is to always think of the bigger picture and think of a higher word for it. And this is a skill that we as the Venus Project people have to begin to perfect. The calling, when presented with a project in all the world, all your resources to do a project in the world, how do you then approach that situation? We need to come up with a language that best speaks the generalities of what we can do with these lists. And so each of these lists can become part of a grand list of the best lists. And it can forever and ever and ever increase. But these words have to be words that have the most resonance with the most people. And therefore we can start to build categories, and we could really begin to create a global database of who's good at what, and people who know how to get into this database and really know how to use it. And the thing is, there doesn't need to be any passwords for this one, because this is people saying this is the resources that I have available and at my disposal. There's no need to rob me. I'm saying I can give you all of the value straight up. And in a very short time, this process is going to allow us to build the basic tools, the building blocks of Jacques Fresco's ideas, and from there, perpetuation is going to be easier and more refined. Each person then can add their own sense of creativity to it. I understand the idea that we can make subjects such a long algorithm when really, in a higher perspective, we can begin to see them as short. And this is the idea of folding something under something else. And this is one of the major things that, just as an observer in the world, I've come to see the power of knowing how to make an interface that is very easy, very fun, and very purposeful to begin to allow people to see what they want. So in the last chapter, I taught the idea. It doesn't take a genius to think of the idea that you could take two focal points and begin to see a little bit of a vibrational geometry, and you can begin to create a scale, a list, and there you can begin to make an eternal list. A list that is just as relevant over here on this world as it is over there in the nether world. Now, what I'm telling you is you can take those two same points that were seen as focal points, and now you can call each of those two focal points a world where one swallows the other. And so, analogous to seeing a linear line in lists, now we enter the idea that the lines can fold, that there is a bit of geometry, there's a bit of a higher order, and things can begin to curve. And this is one of Plato's liberal arts. I never was good at it. The topic is geometry, learning how to deal with spacings. And that is going to be where I'm going to end that chapter.